yet another episode of the Schoch Factor Podcast. And this week we have entered dark mode with Jordan Shusterman. As you can see, his background, it's changed. It's changed. It is no longer the bright, shiny white wall. Jordan has changed locations, but through the travel, through it all, he has shown up for college baseball. Jordan, how are you doing today?
I'm so good, Steve. It is so good to see you. I'm a little bit sad I won't be seeing you later this week in Omaha, Nebraska. However, I'm here with you now on this StreamYard, recording a podcast about the amazing Super Regionals we just watched. Jake Mintz, my dear friend, who currently does not have a voice, as if you listen to Baseball Barbercast, you may have heard and found out on Monday, he's on the IL with not being able to speak. So I am going to be here, just me and you, Steve, this nice little intimate World Series preview episode. Obviously, you and Jake will be creating plenty of content together. He will be there with you. I'm still settling into my new home in Ohio, but I'm so excited for this College World Series. And these Super Regionals, Steve, were they were super duper. They were better than the Super Duper Looper, as I described last week.
Yeah, suck it, Super Duper Looper. You know, only letting the Hershey bars on and not the Skittles, or however the height chart works at Hershey Park. But you're absolutely right.
Can I just say, so again, this is a reference to last week, referring to we're talking about supers and how I referenced the Super Duper Looper roller coaster in Hershey Park. And I just want to say that shortly after we posted that episode, I received a text from Mike Monaco that said, "I've never heard duper used in another context," for the record. Very validating from Mike Monaco. However, tough look for your boy, as I did not respond to that text. So hopefully by the time you're hearing this, Mike Monaco, I have responded. If not, I am as bad as Jake Mintz and his 200 unread text messages. But anyway, Steve, it is great to see you. You have wonderfully prepared this here podcast episode for us, and I'm ready to get started. Where would you like to begin?
Yeah, so I think we begin on the top. So just for reference, a little peeling back of the curtain for the people listening. When we do podcasts, we always have a Google Doc up, and it's just kind of, these are our guidelines, because otherwise, it would be 30 minutes of Jordan trying to wrangle me and Jake in. It would be like watching a family at Disney World, Yeah, where it's like, hey, look, we got this kid on a leash, but that's useless when we don't have the other end of the leash, and that's what it would be like. So for this and for our selection, and so it's not bias, we just went to the NCAA's website, went right through the graphics of, hey, they put Virginia next to UNC right here. That's how we're going to talk about them. So it's going to be a fastball right down the middle. If you are a visual learner and you're like, hey, I'm not driving my car, or maybe you are driving your car and you just aren't, the most responsible person, don't go to the NCAA.com and look at the bracket if you're driving. That's a full disclaimer. But if you're watching at home and you're like, hey, I want to follow along, just look at the NCAA website. That's where we're getting this from. But I want to start off with Virginia. It's where I went this weekend. It's also where I went, to college a couple of years back. Got myself a little participation in Omaha ring and all that. Look,
handing those out.
Lights in the box. Lights in the box. I got shelled. Either way, so we're going to start off there. I went to Super Regionals this weekend, and honestly, this team, They showed a really complete performance just any time throughout the game. It never really felt like they weren't in control. Even when they were trailing for a large part of the second game, they always felt like they were on the cusp. And, with a guy like Tyson Neighbors on the mound pitching against you, that's a weird feeling to have. It's typically, we're losing to K-State. Tyson Neighbors is on the mound throwing 100, doing things with his fastball that doesn't seem normal, because it's absolutely not. And to just stay in the game, keep it close, and fight their way back into it was really cool. And also to see Jay Woolfolk go deep into a game again on the mound. That's the stuff you love to see. To make it to Omaha, you always need at least one pitcher to kind of step up through the woodworks. Yeah. For me, in 2021, it was Brandon Neek. He came in for 5 innings, struck out 16 batters. Super cool stuff. Jay Woolfolk did the equivalent of that through regionals and super regionals.
Yeah, and it's not. I wouldn't put this on the Cade Horton level of a couple of years ago. However, in terms of guys that have probably made themselves a bit of money over the last few weeks, he is a draft eligible pitcher. Man, if he could ball out again in Omaha, wow! I mean, this is a guy we were thinking about as an interesting relief prospect, and now he's obviously just been so big for Virginia recently. The guy I want to mention is Henry Godbout. I mean.
Mm-hmm.
This dude who is a sophomore, right? So sophomore second baseman, his number. I mean, you could say this about Virginia's offense in general, but his numbers are outrageous. This dude's got more walks than strikeouts. He had a home run over the weekend against K-State. He's obviously I mean, we've talked about Henry Ford, and he's been great too. But Godbout's the one where you really realize how deep this lineup is. And just it's really astonishing, kind of the depth of this UVA group, and we'll see if they can continue to score beyond. Again, the pitching stepped up, right? They're going to have to continue to do that as they now face even better offenses in Omaha. But I mean, they could probably win a shootout too, the way they've been swinging it.
Definitely, and with Godbout, his 3-run home run against. It was definitely the loudest I've ever heard a park in favor of Virginia in my time covering the game or playing the game. The atmosphere in Charlottesville was so cool all weekend long, from, the games themselves to the tailgates before the games to, going to bars after the games. The energy was just off the charts in Charlottesville, which, as an alum, that makes me very happy to see. I do want to, pour one out for the dead homie. The 7-Eleven I would go to get Red Bulls before every game was torn down.
Oh, no.
Which, I would frequent that place. So gotta give some love to them. From
how have the boys been getting fueled up without that 7-Eleven? Do you know?
I truthfully, I don't even know. Like, the closest gas station has to be about half a mile from the field now. Down some back roads, which to me that's a hit, because I remember I would get out of conditioning and I would roll over to 7-Eleven and I would get taquitos. Some days I would park in the 7-Eleven parking lot and just walk over to where we were conditioning, because parking on college campuses can be tough. It would be across train tracks, but that's fine, because walking to conditioning, a train hitting me wasn't the worst thing in the world in my mind. I was kind of like, hey, if it happens, it happens. So, unfortunately, if it happens,
it'll improve my day.
Honestly, it's like, well, how could this get any worse? Train, not really, So, unfortunately for the 7-Eleven, it wandered onto the tracks, it seems.
Yeah. One more UVA thing I just wanted to mention before we move on, because again, there's no doubt about what they're capable on offense. They are going to need a lot of pitchers to step up, right? We know that. We mentioned Jay Woolfolk. We'll see. I imagine, right? Evan Blanco is probably another guy to keep an eye on. The one name I have to bring up here is Matt Augustine. This is someone who, this was a great example of, I really had not been super familiar with his game over the course of the season. Saw him pitch 2 2/3 scoreless in the regional against Mississippi State. And then he came in, I think I caught the tail end of that appearance last week. And then he comes in and pitches against K-State as well. When he came in, I was like, I don't know anything about this kid, but I'm pretty sure he's from New Jersey. And then it popped up and it said, Matt Augustine, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I was like, yes. It said Bishop Eustace. I was like, yes, of course he went to Bishop Eustace. Matt Augustine. I just like to see here comes a freshman pitcher like Matt Augustine. I'm like, oh, I've seen this a million times. I've watched this guy's from New Jersey. And I was right. So I don't know how New Jersey he is. I don't know if he's got the accent, if he sounds like Mike Trout or Zach Gallen or anything in between, but that's a freshman arm I'm very excited to watch in Omaha.
Yeah, he's someone I honestly didn't know much about until regionals, when he pitched against Mississippi State. And I was like, oh, this kid did a lot of what I couldn't do. So he's probably pretty good.
Especially as a freshman.
Oh, my goodness. Freshman Steve would have, you think 24-year-old Steve pitched bad. 18-year-old Steve would have said, hold my beer, watch this. Y'all thought they got rid of the home run derby. But either way, he kind of struggled, I think, early on through the year. He was coming back from an injury, I want to say. I'm not really super familiar with him, but I have gotten more familiar with him as time has gone on. And Cherry Hill, New Jersey, I think I want to say that's one of the areas where it's like, New Jerseyadelphia, where it's kind of the two blending together culture-wise because it's so close to the city. But, I don't know what it is about the state of New Jersey. Maybe it's just how many people they have jammed in there, but any talent, any college baseball game you're watching and you're like, I wonder if there's a kid from Jersey on either of these teams. Just know there probably is. And it's probably one of the better guys.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to shout him out. Anything else on UVA before we move on?
No, just the last thing was in game 2, all 10 runs they scored were with 2 outs. So, this is one of those lineups where it's just like they can paper cut you to death. They can hit a lot of home runs. Don't get me wrong, but also they just aren't going to go away. That's the main thing about them.
Yep. Well said. And Steve gets to see the Who's in Omaha once again. Unbelievable.
I love when things work.
Steve's been living quite a charmed life recently, and he deserves it. But Steve, who will they be taking on in Omaha in their first game? But the Tar Heels of, speaking of Mike Monaco, Chapel Thrill. Oh my goodness! Now, while this was, you look at the scores and you look, they beat UVA. They beat West Virginia in 2 games. These games were spicy. These games were fantastic stuff. What were your biggest takeaways from the Super?
I think Derek Clark threw like 130 plus pitches. I don't remember the exact number, but talk about an absolute stud. Sign me up for Derek Clark. He transferred in from the same JUCO that Cam Schulke from Mississippi State went to. So those guys were on the same team, which that's not a JUCO team I want to face. Not that you'll see Cam Schulke and Derek Clark on the same day, because how on earth could anyone throw after Derek Clark? Because that would be the 34th inning. That's the only time he's getting relief. But
I'll just say, minor fact check.
Okay.
Same D2 team, Northwood University.
Okay.
So they were, no, it's okay. No, it's because Schulke went JUCO after Northwood, and then he ended up at Mississippi State. But yes, they were teammates in 2022. 144 pitches, 100 strikes. This gentleman threw 100 strikes in this game. He was giving up runs, and they kept sending him randomly. They said, go back out there, and you know what? As everyone was watching, oh my God, I can't believe there's anybody out there. I was not surprised at all, because if you look at West Virginia's entire season, the entire strategy of a weekend was let Derek Clark throw as many pitches and innings as possible. That was like the whole plan all season long. That is how they got here, and that is how they were going to try and get through the Super Regional. Ultimately, it was a lot to ask for Derek Clark to go back out there at 140 plus pitches against this UNC lineup. Luke Stevenson hits a home run to tie it. And then Vance Honeycutt with the game of his life. I mean, this is a guy who, coming into the season, we were like, this is a guy who could go in the top 5. He kept striking out a lot. He's had some injuries. He has put it all on display. And we'll talk a little bit about Cam Cannarella and what he did for Clemson in a losing effort later. But as far as all-around performances this weekend, Vance Honeycutt was capital H him. And it was very cool. It was very cool. UNC's a very complete ball club. They have Dalton Pence was absolutely tremendous as well for the Tar Heels. And yeah, I guess that was in the second game. But man, that is a very good baseball team, those Tar Heels.
Yeah, they just play a really complete ball game. And I mean, any of these teams in Omaha, that's what you got to do to get here. But in terms of competition, this was one of the most evenly matched super regionals, I would say. Even though it didn't go to 3 games, it certainly could have, and I don't think anyone would be surprised. I think the only surprise for me when Derek Clark came out of the game was that Blaine Traxel wasn't somehow ready to relieve him, because that feels like a very West Virginia thing that would happen, where it's just like, hey, look, by the way, Blaine's had one more in the tank.
Blaine Traxel was probably warming up at home. Like, even if he was no longer eligible, he was in his living room, like throwing max effort, had a catcher, whole thing.
Yeah, he was ready for game 3, finish game 2 and start game 3, of course. But what Coach Mazey did with West Virginia in that program has just been nothing short of remarkable. I've seen so many pictures, like at the start of his career, what that program looked like. One of my favorites was way before the stadium was ever built, right when they got final plans to get it approved and everything. Coach Mazey had the guys go out to the dirt lot it was going to be put on to have an inner squad there. And don't get me wrong, it didn't look like the most fun practice, but the symbolism of what it was going to stand for one day is so cool. And I saw this one picture. It was a picture of him at the dirt lot standing there observing it, and another picture of him standing in the same space when there's like, the giant stadium that they have now there. And it's just, the impact he's made on college baseball has been really, really cool to see. And, I don't think anyone will ever think of West Virginia baseball and not think of Coach Mason.
Amen to that. It was a heroic effort, a fantastic season for the Mountaineers, but the Tar Heels are the ones moving on to Omaha, Steve. And the player I want, there's a lot. We mentioned Honeycutt. The guy I want to talk about is Jason DeCaro. He's not someone, I feel like he's got a good amount of love on some of the other podcasts on this network. However, this kid, emphasis on kid, because he is younger than a lot of the top high school players for this year's draft. Steve, this is a guy who just turned 18, I believe in April. He turned 18. So basically started this season as a 17-year-old. We were just joking earlier, Steve, about freshman version of you, right? But the freshman version, now what about 17-year-old version of Steve? How would you have handled a platform of this magnitude?
I think I would have gotten kicked out of school. I think they would have seen my grades and been like, hey, you can't come here early. What are you talking about, dude? You're in AP classes, but you're still not doing good in them. Right. So that's first off. And then second off, if I somehow found the field, I think I would get thrown out like Will Smith in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air whenever he pisses off Uncle Phil. That's what would happen anytime I tried to pitch as a 17-year-old at the college level.
But Jason DeCaro, freshly 18, just rolls into this super regional start and pitches into the 7th inning. And to see him, I mean, I have to imagine he'll be one of the youngest pitchers to ever start a game in Omaha. I don't know if there are records that keep track of that. Of course, we've had freshmen start in Omaha before, but he feels like a pretty unique case. So I'm curious to kind of get some more details on that storyline. And then obviously they have a very impressive bullpen as well. So that's what I have on UNC. Anything else before we move on to our next 2 teams?
Yeah, no, just they're a complete team. They absolutely mash. I'm excited to see guys like Parks Harbor and Casey Cook swing it in Omaha because, again, the Chuck Box is a big field, but these are big boys. And the ball's been leaving the yard at an alarming rate this season, and I want to see if that continues throughout the College World Series. And let me tell you, I really think the world needs to see Alberto Osuna cranking home runs at the Chuck Box because he does it in such a cool way. And like his home runs, he does them with such authority where it's like, oh no, that makes sense that baseball is going a mile. Because that's a big boy who got all of it. So that's just a few things to look out for with that.
Let's go to Florida State. Florida State is back in Omaha. They took a year off from the tournament entirely, only to reload and come storming back to the College World Series. Now, we were in Omaha 2 years ago. We saw Link Jarrett with Notre Dame, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he left and he went at Florida State, where, of course, he had plenty of history, and they sucked last year. They were so bad. And early in this season, we're like, wow, well, they're definitely not bad anymore. But how good are they? Right? We were like, okay, well, clearly they don't stink. So that's obvious. But is this team actually like great again? Like, that seems hard to believe by the end of the regular season. And certainly over the past few weeks, it has become very, very clear that this is a excellent baseball team. They just, game one here against UConn was a tough watch for our D3 superheroes as the Noles put up a cool 24 runs in a super regional game, which that's a good day at the Yard. We got 5 home runs, and it was ridiculous. So that was very impressive. Marco Dinges, I think Dinges.
Like
Dinges.
door hinges.
That is very helpful. Marco Dinges. This guy is no joke, Steve. He's a JUCO transfer, and I know he's not getting as much attention as his, the first rounders hitting in front of him. Holy crap. I mean, look at his numbers. What do we want to see? He's a JUCO transfer. He's going to be young for his class, but he's draft eligible. Like, I know he doesn't have a lot of defensive value, but this guy's unbelievable. And just the stars up and down this lineup. And then, of course, what they're able to kind of put out there on the mound. Jamie Arnold wasn't even that good in game 2, and they still were able to relatively cruise to victory.
Yeah, and I think with this Florida State team, we know last season they took the year off from the postseason, and that's good. That's grand. The best way to get back on track is when you get to super regionals, just score a whole postseason's worth of runs in the first game and just be like, hey, look, these are our AT&T rollover minutes, if you remember those. So we're just going to redeem those by James Tibbs.
Cashing those in real good.
James Tibbs III, he's gonna, he's gonna have 3 home runs, might as well, to match the back of his jersey on the second game. And
James Tibbs, the 3 home runs.
Exactly. He does it for his grandpa and his father, but also for the number of nukes he is going to hit this game. And the third of them being the game winner in the 12th to break the 8-8 tie. Just, the Noles feel inevitable in the sense that, UConn was fighting this whole game, and of course
they were. I should say, I said before, they got rather comfortably. This game too was a battle from the Huskies.
Yeah, they fought back, and I believe they had the lead for a good portion of this game too. But it just felt like the Noles were coming, and it was just a matter of time. And I feel like, it's something where we'll talk about Evansville and Tennessee in a moment, but that's one of the biggest things you're going to see postseason and differences between these teams that, they're in the SEC or ACC compared to teams where, they don't have as much money. They don't have as much NIL money coming in. They can't recruit as much. Is the biggest difference that you're going to see is this pitching depth, which, when you run out of pitching and when on the mound, it's, short-lived. It's going to get hairy quick. There's great offenses, and these great offenses do a really good job of capitalizing on guys when they're tired and guys who make mistakes. And, that's just kind of what we saw on display this weekend.
And here's the thing, Steve, we're going to talk about the ACC, SEC, all ACC, SEC situation that we have going on in Omaha. But, ultimately, we are ending up with some pretty talented teams here. And I'll say this last thing on Florida State, just on Tibbs. Again, I know I talk about a lot of things through a draft lens. At this point, I'm not going to be really surprised if this dude goes in the top 7 or 8. Like, people considered him in like that 10 to 20 range for much of the season. He goes to Omaha and pops a couple more home runs. I mean, what more do you want this guy to do? I mean, ACC Player of the Year, it's just an unbelievable stat line. He's got the exit velos to back it up. He is an incredible hitter, and excited to see what he does at the next level. But obviously, he is focused on Omaha right now, where he will now be tasked with hitting against the Volunteers of Tennessee. Tennessee will be volunteering to try and get James Tibbs out, as the Vols survive an epic effort from Ty Rumsey and the Evansville Purple Aces. What a weekend it was in Knoxville, watching this super regional unfold. And while it did ultimately go the way we expected, not without some just truly amazing efforts from Evansville. And I think it was a super regional losing effort that we will remember for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I think, they might have lost in the super regionals, but 2024 is one big fat win for the Evansville Purple Aces. They gained a lot of followers on Twitter, but just also the attention the program's gaining is really good for it. It's one of those things where any press is good press, and they're getting a ton of the good press because it's, hey, these guys just went on an incredible run. Sure, they may have lost, and that part is bad, but being there in the first place is amazing. And I think, honestly, my favorite highlight coming out of this whole super regional was the Tony Vitello post-game press conference. I think that, there was a lot of great things offensively for the Volunteers. There was a lot of great defense, a lot of great pitching, but nothing more impactful or just kind of giving a true weight or status of the world of college baseball than Tony V kind of just sitting down and telling you like it is.
Yeah. And that 6 or 7 minute monologue that he delivered at the beginning of his post-game presser after game 3, which has made the rounds on Twitter, most notably with his shout out to Ty Rumsey, the incredible Evansville outfielder who he didn't end up making the catch, but basically the effort that he made on a catch during this series where the ball kind of bounced off and hit him in the face, and then game 2, I believe, and then he ended up coming back and playing is amazing. But that monologue was, if you watch it and listen to it, is a pretty amazing kind of look into the mind and the aura of Tony V, right? However, if you transcribe what he said and read it, you would be like, this is the most incoherent mess I have ever. Like, there's points along the way where you're like, what is he talking about? Like, he is just swerving in all kinds of directions, and he admits it along the way. He's like, stop me, because I'm about to go, At the same time, it was entertaining. It was brilliant at moments. It was goofy at moments. It was Tony V through and through, and I appreciated that. And I think he is pretty authentic, and I think that is certainly refreshing and from our seat, just very entertaining.
Yeah, I love the part where he talks about defining success, just because as a baseball player, that's a great look at to be successful and to be around this game a long time. You got to be crazy. You got to start redefining some words. And sure, sometimes in the bullpen, that might mean other things when you're doing it with your buddies. But when you're redefining mental cues and things like that to how success is defined by yourself, that's when you can really honestly be successful, because, if you don't have a goal of what success looks like, how could you, ever do that? And you're kind of just wandering around, kind of lost. But I like Tony V's idea of, hey, it doesn't have to be yes or no. It doesn't have to be a failure or failure or success. It can be successful as long as it's progress towards what you're going for. And that's kind of what I took away from it. Just when you are trying to accomplish something big, have different ways to measure your success, measure if you're getting towards it, and you accomplish those small things. And it happens. But also, just again, Tennessee, I guess we'll never have to find out if they were going to consider a failure or success after that, if they had lost that game.
That's
because,
true.
They're going to be in Omaha. So at the end of the day, he's going to be out there and happy.
However, the last thing, I have to touch on this because I know Jake would have brought this up if he was on here. The end of this speech, where basically he's going on what defines success, blah, 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 blah. And then he says, if you have blah, blah, this mindset, that's going to feel success, whether you're in Omaha or he says, if you're somewhere else. And then he says, I would recommend Cabo, Ibiza, or Tulum. And then he says, I'll be there at some point.
Which, yeah, pretty good answer.
Here he said, he's like, basically, if you appreciate that, you're going to have a successful day too. If it's not in Omaha, I would recommend Cabo, Ibiza, or Tulum. Now, these three vacation spots are pretty interesting because to go Cabo to Ibiza to Tulum, it's kind of it's an interesting selection, right? Like Mexico's getting a lot of love there, whereas man, like Ibiza's that's not a short trip, like, but he seems like those being his three options, I think tells me a lot about Tony V. It tells me he's not as interested in maybe Hawaii, right? Maybe he's like, I think I just learned something there a little, like maybe why not Clearwater?
Yeah, it's like
where else?
What about
I would love to know more.
Maybe he just wants to like be out there. He doesn't want his players to think he thinks any other state is good. He doesn't want.
That's true.
Like,
I want to make it.
Oh, you want to go on vacation to Florida? No, I don't want to do that. Right. Or maybe he's paid by Mexico. Maybe it's an NIL thing where it's like, I see ads for California all the time. Yeah. So places can have marketing.
Like Mexican tourism, you think is what you're saying? Because again, did not say Cancun, right?
Mm-mm.
He went Cabo and he went Tulum, right? Those are like that did not feel like an accident. Like he's clearly been to all three of those places and had a very good time. But I
believe it.
And he just doxed himself. Like that is where we will apparently find him whenever this season is over, in one of those three places.
I don't know if I got the wallet to find him down there.
That's true. Here's my assignment for you, Steve. This is your homework. Hopefully you have the opportunity to talk to Tony V later this week. And I would just like a follow-up about that part of his speech.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Cabo, Ibiza,
Tulum. Okay. All right. So there you go. Here's what I'll say about Tennessee before we will take an ad break here, or you will tell us about the Soldier Sports Soldier Tank.
Oh, spoilers! Whoa!
Sorry.
Whoa!
Here's a moment when I was like, "Oh my God, Tennessee!" And he, by the way, he talked about this too. Tony talked about this too, about Dalton Bargo, and Cal Stark and the catching kind of tandem that they have for Tennessee. Or I guess Dalton Bargo, I know he hasn't been doing as much catching, but they're working him into the lineup as best they can. But when Dalton Bargo hits 2 home runs and you realize, like they have 5 other potential top 100 picks and Dean Curley, this incredible, freshman shortstop who is amazing, right? What is this offense not? I mean, this is we've all said it's one of the best offenses we've ever seen in college baseball. And so, how that translates to Omaha when we didn't get to see it 2 years ago, right? We didn't get to see that amazing offense in Omaha. I'm excited to see it this year.
Yeah. And I think, looking at a team roster and seeing how much draft talent they have in a roster is a good way to say, hey, this is a good team. Look at their bench and seeing how much draft talent is on their bench is a whole nother story. And that's kind of where Tennessee has gone, where Dalton Bargo, he might not be starting games. I expected him to be he's their cleanup hitter because he absolutely mashes. He brings a heavy bat with him. He could play a solid first base, great behind the plate as well. But the Tennessee lineup, they have a problem in the sense that there are so many options of who can deliver a home run. But the good news is that's typically not a problem because someone else has already delivered home runs when it's time to go, hey, we need home runs here. But I can't help but think, these home runs are cool. It's hard to hit home runs at the Chuck Box because it's, big and the air in Omaha isn't the greatest. But not many people may know this about Omaha, Nebraska. In Omaha, Nebraska, there's a company called Soldier Sports. Now, Jordan, have you heard of the Soldier Tank BB Core baseball bat?
No. Every week, as soon as we record, I forget as soon as we get off.
And, I make sure to send you the Venmo for forgetting. That way we can get the authentic reactions here. Now, this isn't just any bat. It's lighter and hotter than any of its predecessors. And this is thanks to its infused power alloy technology that creates an ultra big, ultra hot sweet spot. You see it? Crafted from over two. Yeah. It's I'm conceal carried right now. That's what I'm doing. Just because I don't want my neighbors to get scared. They look in the window, they go, "Whoa, Soldier Tank BB Core baseball bat is my neighbor dangerous." Crafted from over 2.5 years of research and development, the Soldier Tank is the perfect blend of speed and power designed for both power and contact hitters. It features a formula for success where speed times mass times impact equals extreme power. I've seen it swung. Even the mishits have juice with the Soldier Tank. The bat is priced at an incredible $311, which is well worth it to swing the top scoring BB Core bat ever. They're selling out fast, though, so head over to soldiersports.us to secure yours today. Thanks, Soldier Sports.
Thank you, Soldier Sports. We roll on to the other side of the bracket. Again, it will be Virginia and North Carolina, Tennessee and Florida State on Friday. And then on Saturday, we will begin with NC State and Kentucky. NC State, the final team to punch their ticket, or should I say scan their ticket. Have you seen the graphics?
Yeah, we're using Apple Pay. Ticket.
I mean, it's fair. Like, it is an outdated term. However, not one I would like to get rid of anytime soon. So I'm going to keep saying punch their ticket. Even if it becomes archaic in a matter of years. NC State goes to a third game with Georgia. And this was a situation where NC State 18-1 game one, Georgia 11-2 in game two. You set up the game 3 on Monday, which is always exciting. But even though they got blitzed, it really did feel like NC State was kind of playing with the most confidence, whereas Georgia, it felt like there were more moments with Georgia where you're like, oh, they're kind of feeling the weight of, we're hosting this super regional and we're trying to get back to Omaha for the first time since, I guess it would have been 2008, I believe. And they have all this incredible talent, and it just kind of slipped away a few times. Not to discredit the amazing season that Georgia had, but NC State's just been playing. I think you've kind of talked about, they've just been playing with a level of confidence recently that is very, very apparent.
Yeah, I just think the main thing that stands out about NC State is, they have their stars. They have guys like Jacob Kozar, who everybody's going to talk about every weekend. But also, everyone on their lineup, everyone on their roster operates with the same level of confidence, the same level of moxie that you see Jacob Kozar operating with, which is a really good sign for a program of, to be good at baseball, you need to either have ridiculous talent or you need to be very, very delusional and think you have that ridiculous talent and be able to back it up to a certain degree. And with NC State playing with this level of confidence, when you play confident, what you do is you make it so the game becomes easier. It becomes slower because you're playing with the thought process and the wherewithal of, oh, I know how to execute. I know how to get the job done here. It's like if you go into a test without studying. That's what confidence is, And so coming into these games, these players have a lot of confidence because they have been tested all season long. I would say if I am a baseball program, if I'm NC State, I'm feeling like the world is a little bit against me where, the NCAA said, hey, get out of Omaha. I know you didn't lose yet, or, you didn't get eliminated, but we said, hey, get out of here. So go on. And then, they get snubbed from the tournament the next season, I feel like. But they could very easily be operating with the attitude of no one wants us to be good, so we're going to be really good. But that's also not true because Steve does also want them to be good. I want to see success for them.
And it's, of course, people are going to be talking about that all week and, what happened in 2021 and 2022. It is interesting, right? I mean, who is left? It's just Sam Highfill, I believe. seems like Noah Souls, the outfielder, was on the roster. I'm not sure if he would have been on. It looks like he played in 16 games in 2021, so it's possible he was around then. But so it's not like a ton of guys, but obviously for Elliott Avent, and of course Sam Heifel, who was a main character, during that season in many ways that we all remember. It's really cool. And then obviously, the guys that have come in, the transfers, of course, some of the freshmen on this roster have made a huge difference and are a huge reason why they are going back to Omaha, right? Even if it's a lot of new faces, so many guys have really stepped up to allow this to happen, including your boy Alec Makarevich, which, holy crap, what a home run that was.
Dude, it's electric when he hits home runs. And he had some good defensive plays too, which was fun to watch. But I just love the way this NC State team plays. I really do. This whole super regional was fun to watch because I feel like NC State and Georgia are very similar programs in the way that they're the same color and their fields kind of look the same. That's what really interested me about this. Was it felt like there were times I were watching this game and I was like, oh, they're playing at NC. No, they aren't. They aren't playing at NC State. That's Georgia. But to see NC State come out on top made me happy because, of course, now we have a well-balanced bracket. Even though, there is one team from another conference thrown into each side. And, true. NC State's going to be the ACC representation over here.
Yeah, that's true. I guess if we had ended up with, would have been nice to have had it, 2-2. It's a little bit too bad that it didn't work out that way, but I agree. It is nice to have a little bit more balance in this sense, to have NC State on this side. And yeah, man, I mean, they are, I believe they are the at least the odds that I saw, they are the longest shot. I think even below Florida, just because SEC, which seems ridiculous, but whatever. So yeah, they're going to have a lot of up against them, but I'm kind of done doubting them at this point.
For me, it feels like, I don't know if you're familiar with the game Mario Party, but the two brackets feel like one player landed on a red space. Just with, it being the two different conferences. That's where my brain automatically goes. Obviously you're a Nintendo guy, so you understand that, but we'll move on for the people that aren't Nintendo. Jake would be withering. He'd be so lost. Speaking of withering and being lost, Kentucky played Oregon State in what was the last Pac-12 sporting event of the history. And
everything.
Now we talk about how this is a 2-conference College World Series, and that's true. It is 2 conferences. But in 4 years, in 10 years, who knows where these schools will be? Maybe it'll be 17 different conferences represented because we're in a weird conglomerate of conferences. Who knows? But either way, this Kentucky team ended the Pac-12, and they did it while smiling. This is a team that has a lot of fun. I would say they have more fun than the other teams. In some instances, all these teams are having a good time. Don't get me wrong. They're in Omaha, but the vibes always feel high around this Kentucky team. Like, even if you tune into a game when they are losing, their dugout is still up. They're still bumping. They're going to have a good time. They refuse to not have a good time.
Quickly before we get to Kentucky, I just want to say, I am glad, this is what I'm about to say is kind of mean, but I am glad that this was the last gasp of the Pac-12 and not what Oregon did a few hours earlier. Because at the end of this game too, we had high drama. We had the Beavers trying to extend the Pac-12's life for one more day. We had Travis Bazzana up, and getting on base with some stupid interference call. And just, there was some ridiculous show across the board this weekend. We'll get to that in a little bit. But the point is this was a valiant effort from the Beavers after getting crushed in game 1. But ultimately, Kentucky prevailed, and they've just been an awesome baseball team. And I am not surprised at all that they have found a way to Omaha, not just because they were the number 2 overall seed, but because they've proven they've just blasted past expectations time and time again. over the past 2 seasons, really, and they deserve to be going for the first time in program history. Are there any individuals on that team you would like to shout out before we keep it moving?
Yeah, so I got to give one individual moment a lot of love, and that was Johnny Hummel coming into the game after the Travis Bazzano, what should have been a double. I mean, obviously,
Yes.
if the kid's glove isn't on, how do you think that happened? You think he just took it off and was like, "Hey, I want to play barehanded right now"? No, probably not. No one's made that decision before. But either way, June 9th was the date of this game. June 9th, 2024. June 9th, 2006, Jordan Shusterman. What happened in American pop culture history that shook the earth, rattled the earth, whatever you want to call it? You aren't dumb for not knowing. The movie Cars came out in theaters. To have Johnny Hummel come out to Sheryl Crow's Real Gone, winning run on first base, tying run on third base, come pump 3 heaters, Ricky, send my team to Omaha. Let's go. I have not had many moments where I'm like, man, I would kill to throw baseballs in this situation because, I'm washed up. My arm hurts. That was one of the situations where I was like, man, I'd love to give Ricky the heater one last time, because this right here is the environment college baseball is all about. You got Sheryl Crow blast. The vibes are high. You have the opportunity to send your team to Omaha for the first time, again, in the history of ever, and to end the Pac-12, and you do it on 3 straight strikes. Come on now. That's the best save you can do in that situation.
It's true. That's true. Color me shocked that Steve is going nuts for the 24-year-old righty reliever.
Walking out to Cars, the 18th birthday of the film, just doing Sheryl Crow the greatest honor. She spends too much time getting drunk during the day to understand that. That's just a joke. I don't know if she consumes a lot of alcohol. That's a joke about her song saying I drink beer at like Tuesday afternoon. Just for clarification.
This man is 6 years older than Jason DeCaro.
That's okay.
So funny. But it was awesome. Awesome finish. I would say the Kentucky guy that kind of took my attention this weekend, Mitchell Daly at his defense at third. Holy crap. Texas transfer, kind of a unique one. To come over from Texas, and he's been in Omaha before, right? So he will not be shook by anything going on at the Omaha Hilton. I don't know where that's name, but he will certainly be familiar. So Kentucky's super fun. I would say, as far as teams that I'm rooting for or would love to see win it all, they are definitely very, very high on the list for sure. But who will they be playing, Steve? They'll be playing NC State, as we said, which means we only have 2 teams left to talk about. Let's try to do it in the next 13 minutes, because I love a podcast that's under 1 hour.
I know you like it crisp.
Do you want to do another ad here before we?
If we're talking about things being crisp. Then why not talk about barbecue? Baseball barbecue started when a broken grill fork and a cracked bat came together to make the perfect grill tool. Now, Baseball Barbecue makes patented bat handle barbecue tools and cutting boards that are licensed for the best teams in college baseball. Fun and functional. It's true. This is functional. I've opened beers with this before and proceeded to drink those beers. Baseball Barbecue products are the perfect gift for casual fans and serious grillers alike, and a great way to out tailgate your rivals. Visit baseballbarbecue.com/D1Baseball to find the perfect grilling gift for the college baseball fan in your life. There we go.
Thanks Baseball Barbecue. As always, appreciate that. All right, let's wrap this up with the we're doing Florida or A&M first. We'll do Florida first.
Yeah, we'll start off with Florida going 2-0 against Clemson.
Very normal 2-0. Very normal 2-0. So this was just, I don't even know where to begin. To be honest, there was so much that happened in these 2 games. Florida, takes game 1, have a massive 7-run 5th inning. We get some just, I mean, the story of that game is Brandon Neely, right? Or so we thought he would be the story of just one game, but instead he would be the story of two games. We get a Cags homer in game one. We get all kinds of fun stuff. But let's just get to game two. I mean, game two was one of the craziest baseball games I've ever watched in my life. The umpires somehow managed to make it about them time and time again. But you know what? I'm not going to make it about them. I am actually going to choose not to talk about the umpiring, even though a lot of what happened suggested we should. But I am looking at an 11-10 ball game in 13 innings, and I am just going to decide that was more than enough actual baseball to talk about. This was just an unbelievable contest. 7 combined home runs, and just the pitching grit that we kind of saw on both sides, whether it was Aiden Canuck as a freshman, whether it was Austin Gordon coming out of the bullpen and throwing 86 pitches, whether it was Brandon Neely throwing 72 pitches the day after he threw nearly 60. Cags, gritting it out in the early innings while also hitting one of the most ridiculous home runs I've ever seen. There was just so much going on here, Steve. It was breathtaking. It was unbelievable, and the back and forth and the tension, particularly in innings 10 to 12. And then of course Cam Cannarella, man. What Cam Cannarella.
Yeah.
Cam Cannarella.
Just making sure we got extra baseball to watch time and time again. I think it was in the bottom of or top of the ninth, bottom of the ninth, whatever it was.
Top of the ninth, game tying homer. Yep.
And then, that extends it. Then we get the play where it's like, hey, just figure out how to catch this. Like the catch probability is probably like 10%. But you'll find a way. Don't use your glove either, by the way, and run into the wall and save the game. Dude. And he does just that. And he's doing all of this with it or some sort of shoulder injury, which shoulder injuries, that's a tendon. You can't really repair that or, just sit it out and wait for it to heal. You have to get it burned back into place, essentially. That's right. Again, not a doctor. No, not that any assuming I am, but if you are, go see a real doctor. They'll get fixed because you're in the wrong place. But either way, that hurts, and it's not easy to hit home runs when you're broke. And he's doing that, and providing the most clutch entertainment we got this postseason, in my opinion. I will say one of the boldest moves I saw was, I've met Jack Caglione. He's bigger than me by quite a bit. I don't think I would shove him. I think I would just leave him be. I know that's another instance. That wasn't Cam Cannarella, but that was another part of the entertainment this weekend, of course, was, people getting at each other's necks. I didn't love the ump show that, followed all that. Jack Crichton did not like the ump show way more than me. That's for sure. He was the man who got ejected. Yeah. I did like Coach Bakich saying, hey, you know what? You want to toss a kid from the biggest game of his life? Do it to his face. You know what? Be a man about it. Do it to his face. Let him get his licks in, essentially.
Yeah. One moment of this insane game that I think will go lost to history is Ty Olenchuk pinch hitting. This was just. Did we get any further details on this? Essentially, very late in the game, they send up Ty Olenchuk to pinch hit top of the 10th. Ty Olenchuk comes in to pinch hit for Nolan Naraki. And I was it possible that Naraki was, no, he wasn't ejected. That can't be right. No, he was fine. So basically they set up Ty Olenchuk to pinch hit. And the broadcast is like, here's Ty Olenchuk, the pitcher, question mark. I believe this is his first collegiate at bat, or at least it was of the season, which it was. He was 1 for 5 last year. But that was just an amazing thing, and he ends up getting rung up on a not so great call after he tossed his bat, thinking that he drew a walk. It seems that Ty Olenchuk raked in the Coastal Plains League 3 years ago, and so it seems that there was some amount of history there. But that was a moment too where I was like, "Wow, we have crossed into just total bananas land. Like this is one of the most bonkers things I've ever seen." All of which is to say, the Cam Cannarella catch, especially when you think about what that would have been for Ashton Wilson, the guy who sort of, come up with Florida late in the season and kind of fill in. It was, one of the most incredible things I've absolutely ever seen. Ultimately, Michael Robertson gets the job done with the walk-off, even after Alden Mathis homers in the top half. And what a battle for Clemson, man. It's a tough way to lose another regional at home or super regional at home. But Florida, I think we said that when they got in with their record, that I said I would rather them go to Omaha than them go 0-2, because if they go 0-2, I'm going to be very angry, because I think it would confirm that they just weren't that good. And instead, they were like, no, actually, we're pretty damn good. And they really, really proved it. And I think they will. I mean, again, they're going to need more than 2 pitchers, but if they have some other guys step up, I think they'll have a shot here in Omaha.
Yeah, I think the best summary of it I could find was Jack Caglione posted a picture of the trophy on Instagram and just said they don't belong. That's very funny to me, because they're going to Omaha. So like them or hate them, they're going to be there. Deal with it.
Sure.
And watch them make magic on the baseball field, I suppose.
We're going to find out, and they will be tasked with slowing down the Aggies of Texas A&M. Steve's new friends down in College Station will be making their way up to Omaha for the first time since, I don't know, when Texas A&M baseball.
2 years ago?
They were there 2 years ago. Am I that stupid? Yeah, they were.
With Notre Dame. Yeah.
Yeah, they were. Shame on me.
They were, but no shame on you. That's on shame on 2022 versions of us, but also 2022 versions of their team, because this was before pitch clock and it was the slow. Was not 2024 Texas A&M.
I have somehow blocked out watching that version of the team because it was not very fun to watch and quite different from the version we are watching now, which is one of the most fun teams to watch. Unfortunately, Braden Montgomery broke his ankle trying to score during this super regional, will not be participating. That super bums me out as a huge Braden Montgomery fan. However, there is still plenty of star power to go around. And especially on the mound, I think what we saw, even with the struggles from Ryan Prager, Chris Cortez is another guy, I think, because of how hard he throws and because of is he going to start? Is he going to relieve? That is someone who can get a lot of attention in Omaha. I know the strike throwing has been inconsistent, but the arm talent for Chris Cortez is on par with, just about anybody in Omaha, like truly, And so I think that's someone that I'm really excited for the first time that he takes them out, whenever that is.
Yeah. And for me, like, just looking at this team, looking at what they can do, I've been so impressed with them all season. They came back from, I think this weekend, they're starting pitching when a combined like 2 or 3 innings. And to win a super regional, when those are the outings your starters turn in, and that's not a knock against any of the starting pitchers. Starting a game is very difficult to do. I couldn't really do it. So shout out to you guys for doing it. But it's easy to have a game where you're off, and a lot of teams will lose games where they're starting pitchers off. And that's okay. Everyone kind of expects you to, because that's a very important part of baseball. That's the hard half, is the pitching and the defense. The other hard half, it's all hard. Now that I think about it. But hitting is very difficult. And to do that at a pace better than the other team when your pitcher is off is really impressive. And that's a telltale sign of a very, very dangerous team.
Yeah. No, and again, we've seen A&M look like the best team in the country, at times this season. And obviously, Braden Montgomery's been a big part of that. So they're going to need some other gentlemen to step up, including your friend Hayden.
He'll do it. I'm sure he will.
I think he will. And seeing him in Omaha will certainly be a good time. But Laviolette and Grahovic and now Caden Kent. Right now, we're going to see Caden Kent kind of get to step up and get some real playing time. I think all the stuff about his story this weekend was pretty freaking cool. And that 7th inning in Game 2 was absolutely one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. Not to be dramatic, but I was happy for the Aggie faithful that they got to witness that. And And Caden Kent was, of course, the exclamation point on that ridiculous inning. So, but hey, Aggies are going back to Omaha. Schloss has done it once again, and them against Florida will be pretty juicy. All right, Steve. Well, I think we did it. I think we previewed Omaha.
Yeah,
I'll let this go a little bit
too.
over an hour, but let me just say, I'm excited to watch on TV. I will miss you guys. Try and take off your Virginia underwear for a second for this next question. What is the game you are most looking forward to watching just this weekend?
Oh my goodness.
Just, you have to pick one. Well, you have to pick one. And then we can be done.
Okay. So I'm excited, most excited for either Florida State, Tennessee.
Pick one.
All right. I'm going to go Florida State, Tennessee, because I feel like that's two, top of the conferences in both regards. One of the best interconference matchups we'll get. And that's a guaranteed one. I hate thinking about it would be so cool if this team.
I don't. Let's go talk about one game at a time. All right. That's
it would be cool if I turned into a roller coaster too, but that's probably not going to happen. I'm probably still going to be a person, not bringing thrills.
Yeah, I'm not looking ahead to the possible championship series. Let's just enjoy the games we have on the slate. And this is the thing, I've said this about the Women's College World Series, which I'm a big fan of, which also often features a lot of the national seeds, right? You end up with the best teams there. And while everyone loves a good Cinderella story, to have the best teams in Omaha is cool. And it kind of puts the pressure on every team, because you kind of feel like they can all make something happen. And that is it's, we should have some real heavyweight fights. And I think that's really exciting. So that's why I'm excited for this field, even if, not a lot of, I guess Kentucky, right? I guess you could say Florida because of their record. But to me, to call them an underdog is probably not accurate. But Kentucky is the team I'm really, really excited to see how far they can go, because we've seen a lot of these other teams win it all, or at least get a lot closer. So anyway, that's it, Steve. This was great. Thanks for doing this pod with me.
Of course, thank you so much, as always, for joining me here on the Schoch Factor podcast. I agree. I think this year's Omaha, whoever ends up winning, is not going to be unscathed. It's going to be like a car rolling up to the finish line of the Indiana 500 with one wheel left, because it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot. There's a lot of talent out there, but we're excited for it. We're excited to keep you updated on all postseason long. So make sure to follow along the Schoch Factor podcast wherever you're listening to your podcast. This is on the D1 Baseball Network. College baseball is rad. Jordan is absolutely right. We are officially sold out of the College Baseball is Rad 2.0 hat, but yeah. If you want any of the other,
I was going to say, I got the OG here. You've been moving up in the world. Your hat quality has come a long way.
We got embroidered. I'm pretty sure the one I gave you might have a logo on the back that just says BDB. This one has actual words, so that's pretty cool. But as always, thank you for tuning into the Schoch Factor podcast on the D1 Baseball Network, on the SiriusXM Sports Podcast Network as well. Thank you to Soldier Sports and Baseball Barbecue for making this possible. And have a great postseason, everyone. It's going to be a great time in Omaha, Nebraska. If you see us around, me or Jake Mintz, say hi. If you see Jordan Shusterman out there, say, hey, dude, what the heck? You told your friends Steve and Jake you weren't coming this year. And dox him. Add an air tag to him.
If I end up in Omaha, definitely call me out.
Yeah, just make sure to check him on that, because we need checks and balances in this world. But make sure to stop us, say hello, and just have a great time. Enjoy the College World